Now.
And so let me just show you a few others. And this was what was like July 9th, I think it started. And it was like we had a week to put something together.
Not a lot of time.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of time. And we didn't finish. We got a prototype basically going just because we all had like stuff to do. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, sorry I'm all late.
No, that's okay. I didn't see you coming. So let's see, where are the game submissions? This one was really cool. This one's probably my favorite. So just an example, I think this one guy who did this, yeah. And, you know, they're just little games. Where's that on Square One? This one was really cool. Really cool atmosphere, really good graphics. Again, 3 colors. So you got all that detail in just 3 colors. Here's our submission, Star Runner. With a few screenshots. There's some GIFs of our prototype. We had collision working, we had basic controlling working. You can see from this one, like those green squares were collision boxes, and the red ones were like switches. And so if you landed on a switch, some kind of logic would occur, and it was based on an event, like an event system. So each one of these little switches, if you collided with it, would call out an event. So like at the top of the screen here, there was a red switch. There's a switch, and these are just when you had it on debug mode, you could see them. There'd be a switch right here, and each switch would just either change the level or do some kind of logic. We had grand aspirations to have like this awesome puzzle platformer. Like we had all these crazy puzzles that we planned out, and we took hours to plan the puzzle. We probably should have been programming because we didn't finish it. So this is not terrible. But I have, I plan on finishing it. I still want to work on it. So I can run a demo really quick. So we wrote it in Python, and then I like instantly regretted it, and so now I'm porting it to JavaScript and HTML5.
So you're playing in JavaScript this time?
Huh?
You're going to be playing in JavaScript this time?
Yeah, so you can play it in the browser. Okay.
Well, that's new.
That is new.
I haven't seen that yet.
And I forgot that I took all the hooks out to actually start playing the game, so this is all we're going to get. You can see this GIF. This GIF takes you through the entire game that we built, so if you really want to go through a run-through, you can just look at this GIF. GameBoyJam.net, GBJam.net.
You got one in your stream if you want to show them it now. It's up to you.
Oh, the Twitch?
Yeah.
Twitch TV, yeah. Where did he post that?
It's
discussion?
Yeah, general discussion.
Yeah. So if you want to watch a playthrough, this guy did a stream of all the games, and he started with ours. And he goes through ours, and he goes through SquareBot. SquareBot was just really awesome. So if you want to watch everybody's games, you can click on this link, and he's a pretty funny guy. He's very patient, and he worked through the bugs. So yeah, that's what we did. If we have any other game jams, I post them on Facebook. There's one for the Oculus Rift, but I don't know anybody with an Oculus Rift around here, so we can't really participate. But you guys know what that is. It's like the heads-up display that you can be in the 3D world. You can look around like this, and your character's head will look around like this, and it maps the viewport to your orientation. So it gives you a really good sense of immersion.
This Project Arc was pretty freaky. Did you watch that one?
Project Arc?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
It's the one that's like an RPG. It's just kind of weird. First couple of them kind of out there. Mr. Kitty Saves the World.
Oh, you mean the Game Boy Jam thing? Yeah.
Is it a game group?
Yes, it is. Came just in time. All right, so today we're going to be building a Unity game from scratch, beginning to end. I don't think we're going to finish it because we only have 2 hours, but at least I want to get started, get the ball rolling, and maybe next meeting we can finish it up. So I think that'd be a pretty good format. because I really don't think we could cover all the things we need to cover just in 2 hours. So last night I put some assets together. What we're going to do first is we're going to open up Unity, create a new project, bring in the assets, and then we're going to start scripting them up and building the game. New project. So the name of the game is called Get Coins, Don't Die. Alright, so just going to import a few assets here. I didn't think that was going to work. Okay, let's build it from scratch. Okay, cool. So the idea behind this game is really simple. Collect coins. As you collect a coin, another coin will spawn somewhere else in the level. And you just go around the level collecting coins as they spawn. But there's one threat, and that's lava underneath of you. And there's platforms, so you have to be very careful when you're jumping from platform to platform and not to fall into the lava. Very basic game. Not much difficulty to it or any content at all, but enough to get us started. So let's first start with the lava, because that seems pretty simple. So to start with that one, I gotta get one other thing. This one. Okay, so this plane is a very simple 3D object. It's got 4 corners and not much to it, but we're going to use this as the lava collision. So when our player interacts with this object, he'll die. When you import an object into Unity, you have this inspector that gives you a bunch of import options. I like to come in before I actually play with it in the scene and make sure that these options are correct. This doesn't have any animation, so I'm going to turn that off. Rig is like the skeleton for the animation, and this is the actual animation data. And then the model, this is all pretty basic, and it's okay. We can move it like that. So to get this to actually look like something, we need to give it a material. So this hierarchy, these are the things that are in your game right now. So there's 2 things in the game. There's a main camera and this plane, a 2D plane. Attached to the plane is a mesh renderer, and each mesh renderer has a materials list. So for every 3D object in the game, you can have as many materials as you want attached to it. For this, it's just going to have 1 lava texture. So let me move this throw it away. So create a material, call it Get Coins, Don't Die, Lava. Okay, we have a texture here. I'll explain that. First. Just drag and drop. Lava is a bright object. Like if you look at lava, it emits light. So you want your shader to match that. Now a shader is basically how light interacts with your 3D object and your material. So I don't want a diffuse. A diffuse means when light hits it, it's going to actually dictate what it looks like. I want it to emit light. So I have this shader called unlit. And basically that means that light doesn't interact with it. It's always bright. It's always going to be visible. So we're going to apply that material to this plane. Now if we look at that, there it is. But it's really tiny because we've just imported it. A lot of the times when you import stuff into Unity, they're really small. So we're going to blow it up. Turn that on.
How do you know how big to make it? Like you typed 1,000. Why not 10,000? Why?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
It's just like you get a feel for it eventually. And like once you start importing your models, it kind of all fits. But I like to think in terms of like meters. So I pretend that these are all meters. And it pretty much works out that way.
Okay.
Okay, so there's one problem with our lava. It's really boring. Even though this is a texture, what it's happening is it's 1,000 meters wide, but it's just one little texture stretched out for 1,000 meters. So what we want to do is tile the texture. So to do that, this shader has a tiling attribute that you can modify. And so we're going to say 128 by 128. So that means it's going to tile itself 128 times. Now the only problem with this now is it's a little blurry. As you can see, the pixels aren't very sharp. I like to have sharp pixels. So to do that, go into the inspector for the actual texture file itself, not the material or the shader. And this is filter mode. Say point. See how they're sharp now? That's how I want it. Also, we can, instead of caching 1,024 bits for each texture, it's a lot of overhead, you can bring it down in size, bring it to true color. Okay, so now we have some lava. Next I want to do is skybox. Now skybox is, in this world that we're looking around in, we have this blue sky right now. And you can see here in the game preview. The game preview is basically what it's going to look like when it runs. The scene editor here is not exactly a one-to-one representation of what it's going to be like. So we add a skybox. To do this, you go to Edit, Render Settings, and this is specific to this scene. So in Unity, each project can have hundreds of scenes, each one representing a different level. And each scene has its own render settings. So you can do fog and ambient light and all that kind of stuff. You can also do this from JavaScript programmatically if you want to. But this is a great way to do it. So to create a skybox, this is where you put it in. Right click, create material, shader. I like to use the mobile version. It's lightweight. Okay, so I have a background. So there's back, which is behind me, front, which is in front of me, left, which is, east, right, west. And then you have up, and then down. And so what that'll do is, it's basically you're inside of a cube, and each one of those is a different face. And it's going to give you that effect. We'll go ahead and rename this.
How does it blend them together?
GCDD. Blends them together. What do you mean, like, how does it stitch them together?
Yeah.
It just goes corner to corner.
Okay.
So each one of these, it lines up with the next one's corner.
So you can't see a seam or anything. It just
No.
has a way of seeing them together.
You shouldn't be able to see a seam. What just happened? Oh, this is the old one. That's why I wouldn't let me rename it. I imported that in from the old project. That's better. Okay, so again, render settings, skybox material. Let's drag that in. Now we have a skybox, and again, it's blurry. I don't like that. So I want to select these three textures. Filter mode, point, apply. Now, if you notice, the colors are off a little bit. See, there's little artifacts here. True color will fix that. So now it's the actual pixel color. It's not compressing it at all. I'll keep doing this. Okay, so now I have a skybox and some lava. Now if we go to the edges here, you can see it falls off into oblivion. So what we're going to do is basically not allow the character to ever get anywhere near those edges. So we don't
And
really have to
you
worry
can
about
even
it.
see here a little bit the cube nature of it. It looks like what you were talking about, Michael, how it's stitched together. It does look like you're inside a cube here.
Yep. There's special programs you can download that will basically generate 2D textures, but it'll warp them in the way to give you a sense of it being a sphere rather than being a box. But obviously, I don't have that technology.
I'm just curious.
No, yeah. I think Terrain Gen. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm.
It's a free program that will allow you to generate really high fidelity terrains, and it'll export to Skybox. But that's a little out of the scope of what we're doing today.
Yeah, that program's around for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And I think they have a new iteration of it, and it's like photorealistic. It's crazy. Okay, so if you're here last time, I didn't import it. Peter built a box. Where did I put it? Meetup files. Oh, there's a crate texture. I'll bring that in. And there's a crate. Bring that in too. So we're going to use these as our calculate. This is a little technical thing. These are going to be our platforms. Let's drag the pixel crate in. So you can see it there in the middle of the screen. It has this no name shader. I'm not going to create a new shader for it. I'm just going to use this because it's got UV data. Basically, when you build a 3D model, you have to tell it how to wrap textures on top of it. You can't just throw a texture at it and expect it to line up perfectly. So we did that in an external program.
So it keeps all that then, it keeps all the UV mapping and everything.
Mm-hmm. That's stored in the material, which is this no name. So I can't just go ahead and create a material like I've done with the plane fixed.
Does Unity have the same capabilities as far as that goes that something like 3D Max does?
No, it doesn't wrap. Like there's no way to actually tell it exactly how to wrap a material unless you're going to do it in code. And I've done that before, and it takes like an hour just to get like one face right.
Mm.
So it's not really practical. But you can change the shader, even though the UV data is stored in the material. The shader is independent from that. But I like diffuse; it's going to work fine for us. But if we wanted to, we could make it unlit. So let's give you a sense of that. That's unlit, and that's with the diffuse. Okay, so let me add some lights to the scene because right now there's no lights. So we have a platform. Stick it in the lava.
Is there a way to make the lava itself like emit light, or do you have to create a separate light engine?
There is, but that's in the Pro version. And you know now Unity Pro you can buy monthly, so you don't have to pay the $1,400 or whatever it costs. You can pay for it monthly. It's $75 a month if you really want all those crazy features. For most indie games you don't need them. But what I'm going to do is the next best thing, which is create a directional light. So in Unity, you have directional light, point lights, spotlights, and area lights. Area light is more along the lines of that. You can assign this to a material, and you can have shaders that emit light too. But this is a pro feature, so we can't get into that. The spotlight is kind of like, I guess we don't have any spotlights in here, but you know what a spotlight is. Directional light, basically, it's not from a point. It's infinitely large, so it's always emitting light on a plane infinitely big. You can rotate this plane, this infinitely big plane with this rotation. You can rotate about Y or X or Z. But what I want it to do is emit up from the lava to give it the effect that lava is kind of glowing here. So I believe it's -90. And you can kind of see from this gizmo is what they call it. that is facing up as opposed to down. We're gonna give it a red color because it's lava. Okay, so there's our directional light. I also want one from the sky. Trying to copy that. Make it blue. Doesn't matter where you place these, again, they're infinitely big, so you can place them pretty much anywhere on the map. So one other thing is the angle of, I forgot the word, but basically how light interacts with this box. You can play with that outside of the materials. If you click on the actual asset, go to model, the normal basically dictates when the light comes in at an angle, it hits the surface and then it bounces back off into the viewer's eye. Well, you can adjust the normal, basically adjust the angle at which it refracts. So something like a water bottle has a really soft angle of, I can't remember the name for it, but it's basically the smoothing angle. So I bring it all the way out. You can see in the preview here that it changes a little bit. It's hard to describe. It's more of an advanced feature. If you're really into it, you can kind of see the difference. Okay, moving on. Let's add the character to the game, so you can actually like jump around and stuff. I'm missing materials. Looks like I am. Go. Nope, I'm gonna have to import one. All these files will be available online, so if you want to play around with it, you can. Just grab this shader I need. Okay, cool. So here's our player, our guy. As you can see, we're going to have to make the crate a little bigger for him to jump on it. To do that, you have these tools up here. Right now, it's defaulting to the move tool, which you can see you can move stuff with the gizmo. You have a rotational tool that allows you to rotate it any way you want. And then you have a scale tool. Basically, these three tools manipulate the transform. Now, if you notice when I click on stuff in the hierarchy, the inspector updates with different components. So you have the transform component, mesh render component, and the shader. This isn't a component, it's just like a widget or something. Anyways, these tools affect these properties. So you can click on one of these boxes and you drag to scale. So if you want to drag by Y, drag by X, drag by Z, you can do that. Or if you drag them all at once. Okay. So if we play the game, nothing's going to happen. We don't have any scripting data, no physics are going on, nothing's really happening right now. You just have a few static meshes sitting in a space. So what I want to do is animate them a little bit. Starting with my character, what I want to do is animate his arms. Now, later we can get into controlling his arms, but let's just for now show some movement. So what I want to do is I'm going to rotate him down. Now in the real world, you expect his arms to kind of hang down in front of him at this angle because of gravity. Pull his arms down, right? And you have to kind of accept that he's a robot and he floats with this floating device, so we're just going to deal with that. But his arms react to gravity accordingly. Let me turn this stuff off. Now for this type of animation, because it's going to be like realistic physics, it's not going to be something that's pre-done in like 3ds Max or something. It's not going to have animation data. But instead what it's going to use is it's going to use a rigid body. Now rigid bodies in Unity basically if you attach this to any object in the game, it will have physical attributes, real physical attributes. It will be affected by gravity. It can be manipulated. It will collide with things. It can have mass, drag, and angular drag. So these are his arms that I've selected. They're going to have gravity. I'm also going to give him a joint. I'll explain why in a second. Okay. Again, we need a rigid body. But this time I'm going to turn gravity off, and that's because I need his body to be manipulated with scripts. Okay. So his arms aren't going to be manipulated by scripts. They're going to be affected by gravity independent of any kind of scripting, any kind of code. But in order to tell this rigid body that, listen, I want you to interact with the world physically, but I need to manipulate you with code, we use this is kinematic, and turn gravity off. Because we simulate gravity in the code, which I'll show you. Okay, so this one doesn't need a rigid body, but flip these up. Okay. That's fine, it's fine, use spring, dampen it. Now we can do a whole, like, 4 hours on just rigid bodies and joints and springs and all this other stuff, but I'm going to kind of skim over that right now because we just don't have time. Okay, cool. So if we run this, his arm should swing in front of him. There you go. So basically what's happening here is you have his arms being affected by gravity, but his body is independent from that. His body's just kind of floating in space. Now you see when I press play and I manipulate something in the game, it's only temporary. Plus play again and it all resets back to its initial state when you had the scene set up. Let me go ahead and save this just in case something bad happens. Okay, so now we're going to script them up. I need another script from my old game. Where are you? Chunk. There we go. Okay, this player controller I've been working on for about a year, so I'm not going to be able to explain all of it tonight, but I will go into it. We'll jump into the code and I'll let you guys about it. But I'll have this online, so if you want to play with it yourself, you can. There's a lot of functionality in it. Just drag this into our project. So you go to Add Component and say Player Controller. Player Controller relies on this thing called Character Controller, which is built into Unity. You don't really have to do anything with Character Controller. It's basically the device Unity uses to get your character to move around the screen with user input. You could write your own character controller if you really wanted to, but Unity has done so much of the work for you. We just attach it to our objects and then kind of work around it. You know for a fact it needs to be faster than that. Bring this down a little.
What languages can you write in Unity?
You can write in JavaScript, C++, or Boo, B-O-O, something I've never used before. But JavaScript and C++, I mean not C++, sorry, C#. C# is pretty much the most flexible. You can do the most with it. But JavaScript is just so much easier. The code's easier to look at. You can really do a lot of things with JavaScript. But if you want really granular control, you would use C#. Okay, so here's our player controller. I think he's all ready to go. Oh no, he's not. Okay, so he's a physical object in this world. This box is not. This box has no physical data at all. So what we're going to do is add a box collider. Basically, this will prevent him from falling straight through the box. As it stands, this lava has no collider on it. So I'll show you. When we jump through the lava, he'll pass straight through it. But the box, he'll stop. There he is. He's kind of just chilling. Okay, I can see the first problem here. This green thing that you see here, this like weird looking pill, this is the collision data for the character. So this is what's colliding with the world. Obviously, it's way too big. So we're going to stop the game. And make that a little smaller. You have another problem. Okay. So now just this pill is going to interact with the world. His arms, if they were to hit anything, they go right through it. Okay. Looking around, jumping, and falling into the lava. Okay. So there's another problem.
Would he eventually hit the edge of the cube, the world? It just keeps on.
It'll fall. You know how in integers, there's a limit to how big an integer can actually be, and it's in really far out there.
Yeah.
Well, basically, once his y value gets that far, Unity will crash.
Oh, it'll crash. He won't just pop out from the ceiling.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, maybe I've never actually sat there.
It's semi-relevant. I don't know if you ever watched this YouTube show, Game Grumps.
Oh, I love Game Grumps.
Yeah, they were playing this Chester Cheeto game,
Uh-huh.
and they managed to glitch him out to where he was like infinitely falling. So like they would just be like every couple minutes he would just like fall through the screen and just be like wow. But yeah, it's kind of the same principle. It's like you fall so far that you end up on the ceiling and you just fall forever.
Yeah.
Like a portal almost.
I mean, you'll see it in lots of games. If you jump around enough, you'll eventually find a crack in the level where you can actually go through all the geometry in the game and just start falling forever. Most developers, if they think if you're willing to go that far with breaking their game, they're just gonna let you break it. They're not gonna actually put the logic in to make you like.
Warcraft actually had like a lot of exploits like that. You could get underneath the level in the world, just run around, and there'd be like see where.
I remember
gaps, and you can jump in, and then they just
GTA 3 had that. There was like this tunnel, like if you jump like up on top of it, you can get like on like the inverted part of the world and like walk around on top of the tunnel and see under everything.
Yeah, Warcraft did that too, like with like content that they got rid of. Like they couldn't just delete it from the game because that would just cause too many problems.
Yeah.
So they just took whole zones and just put them in areas where they thought no one would ever be able to like exploit and get to.
But they were
They
wrong.
do.
They were so wrong.
And then so like people would make like YouTube videos like, oh, go see like this area that's been taken out of the game. You do like all this crazy shit.
If it
You really want
exists
to
in game,
spend time.
someone's gonna find it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
There are people.
Hot coffee.
Oh yeah, good example. Yeah, never forget that. I actually never exploited that.
Neither did I, but
Yeah. Okay, so I just added a few platforms here. So just a quick little recap of what we've done so far. Added a skybox, added a character, gave the character a script that controls him, that takes keyboard input and mouse input and transforms him. Gave his arms a hinge joint with rigid bodies so they actually interact with the world around them and appropriately interact with gravity. Add boxes with box colliders, so anything at all, it doesn't have to be this player, will collide with them and won't pass through them. Okay, so the next step I want to do is add some coins for our game. So I have a coin here. And a little big. Scale it down. I'm going to put them in between the boxes, so you actually have to kind of jump for it. Now, this is kind of difficult. I'm like panning around with the camera, and to do that, you hold right click on your mouse and use WASD. So this is A, this is D, WS. But if you wanted a little more formatted approach to it, you can click in here, and it'll basically rotate your viewport for you. Now, right now, you see here this triangle-looking thing. That denotes that it's in perspective mode. But if you click the central square here, it goes into orthogonal.
Orthographic.
Orthographic, yeah, that's right. Orthographic view. So basically, when you took art class in elementary school and they taught you perspective, orthographic's throwing it all out of the window, and it's basically like caveman paintings. Like everything has its own, is the same dimension no matter how far away it is. If you have a box here and a box a mile away, they're going to look exactly the same next to each other. There's no perspective at all. So there's no shrinking as it gets further away, like it does in the real world.
And you can use that view to make 2D games in Unity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that will help you like keep that illusion that it's not 3D, it's not far away.
Is it either top down?
Yeah. If you tap on Y. It's nice for like laying out levels, especially when you're really far away and they're really big. It just helps keep kind of everything in perspective. I use it occasionally. Alright, so I'm going to replace this guy.
I use it a lot in 3D modeling.
Oh, yeah, I bet, because it's like, otherwise you're constantly having to work against the camera because it's like something will be in your way.
If you're modeling something in perspective and then all of a sudden rotate around and like, wow, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. Okay, just add a few coins around here. Basically what I'm going to do is we're going to write a script that hides the coins, and there will be, each coin will have a state, either hidden or shown, and we'll have a coin controller. What's going to happen is when the character touches a coin, the coin controller is going to randomly turn off or turn on one of the other coins. And as you jump into a coin, it'll turn that particular coin off. So there's only going to be one or maybe two coins on at a time. So you'll constantly be jumping to and fro trying to get all the coins. Now you can easily make this more difficult by adding monsters or some other challenges, but it doesn't have to be hard. I'm not too happy with these.
What if you made them spin?
I'm gonna make them spin. But I don't like the color. I worked so hard to make them color nice.
It's the lighting, right?
I think it's gotta be the lighting out.
You can probably change the intensity.
Oh, you know what it is? I got it. Okay, so back in render settings, this ambient light. This is basically light applied to everything. No matter where it is in the level, it's gonna get this light. So like if I bring it to white, see, it's completely independent of where it is. You can change color, and this is great for setting the mood. So like we're in a lava level, so green obviously doesn't work, but maybe like an orange, like a bright orange, might work a little better. Intensity down a little. So just to give you an overview of this: hue, saturation, velocity. Velocity is brightness, saturation is like level of color, and then hue is the rainbow. Cool. So those look a little better. Let's get them spinning. I'm gonna go back into my other project here. Plugins. Why is it in plugins? Just drag them in. Oh, that's right. Movement is what I'm looking for. Mesh manipulation. Positioning. Oh. Utility.
Wasn't there a built-in option rotation in Unity? Like, remember we did it with the crate.
No, that was a script I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I really should organize my stuff. Environment. Spin about. Sorry, I should have dragged this along with the rest of it. You know, if Windows like search worked like it was supposed to, I wouldn't have to do this. Where did I have it? Yeah, it was movement. Standard assets. Cool. So. Okay. So this little script, and we'll jump into it and look at it. This is annoying. I have to do this each time, but I do. So I really should have like default import settings or something in Unity. Okay, so select all the coins. Go down here to add component, and they say spin about any axis with speed. Now they're still all selected, so I'm going to do a group edit. So all of these objects in this game are going to be modified however I choose. So this particular component in all these objects. So I'm going to spin about the y-axis. So if you spin about the y-axis, you basically think there's a nail or something going straight through whatever your object is along the y-axis, x-axis, and the z-axis. So if it's going through the x-axis, it's going to spin about that. Just give you an idea. So let's say 2. And so when we play, we're spinning. I'm flipping around, jumping way too far.
You killed him again.
I know, I'm just a horrible person. I'm starting to realize this level has been scaled way too far down. It actually needs to be bigger. The plane is okay, but the rest of it isn't. So what I want to do that, instead of clicking on each one and scaling it and then repositioning it, what I want to do is Control-Shift-N, creates a new object, or you could say game object, create empty, it's the same thing. And we're going to call this geometry. I'm going to add everything besides the player, the camera, and the lights to it. And actually, clean up for now. And scale it. And so it all scales together, and it's a little bigger. Character 2, getting bump them up a bit. And I want to reduce the speed. Jump height. 5, that's it. Okay. Place them over a box. Okay, play it real quick. That works good. Okay, so one more problem we have. This camera is just floating here. It's not following the player at all. It's not doing anything. So simple as attaching it to the player. Now when you attach something to another object, it keeps its current position. So it's like over here. But what we want it to do is like be right behind the player's head. So I could either use this tool to move him there, or I can use a transform tool. Now in this transform component, if you notice, if I pull it out, watch the values. It's 0, 1, negative 10. When I bring it into the player, negative 2, 2, and negative 11, it's because it's relative to where the player is in world space. So if I change this to 0, 0, 0, it's in the player because it's relative to him. So I'll move it out, bring it up, move it out more. Okay, that's good. So now when I play, it's continuously being relative to the player. So wherever the player goes, it goes. And my jump height's not good enough.
So you didn't even need to use like a first-person controller or a third-person controller.
I mean, that's just naming convention. So I mean, this could be a first-person game if I wanted to. I just need to move the camera in front of his head. That's first-person.
So there's no real difference between them?
Right.
No. It's just like, here's Gears of War, here's Call of Duty. That's pretty much the difference.
That's like a much easier way to do it. I
Yeah.
never even thought of that.
I mean, there's probably other ways to do it, and this might not be the best, but
You set collisions on the camera as well, so it doesn't go through objects.
yeah, there. If you download the Unity starter tutorial and everything, it comes with a really awesome camera that has collision. It, like if you're in like a corridor, it gets close, and if you're in outside space, it like backs off and it pivots and everything. It's really nice. This is just a standard dumb camera. If this interacts with geometry, you're going to be seeing the insides of that geometry. Changes
It's kind of complicated to set it up.
Huh?
It's kind of complicated if you were to do it yourself, to set up the collisions.
Oh yeah, you'd have to do a lot. You'd have to do some custom scripts along with putting components on it and everything else. So. Okay, I changed the jump height to 12. It was at a half. So let's see what that does. That's too much. I'll put it at 2. That's more reasonable. Not enough to get to the box. I'm gonna turn the lava. I'm gonna give it a box collider. I mean, it needs a collider eventually, but for right now, it's gonna block us, so we can sit here and play. I don't have to worry about falling through it each time. So my script that I wrote, I have this thing called auto jump. And if you ever played Legend of Zelda, you guys played that for N64?
Yeah.
Everybody has. If you walk up to an edge in Legend of Zelda, you jump off. It's an auto jump.
I hate that.
So this script has that, and you can turn it. You can turn it off, but you have to do it in the script.
You built that?
What?
The auto jump? Or that was the Unity thing?
No, the whole script is something that I wrote. It's an old script. I've been working on it for various games and stuff over, and I just reuse it over and over again. So you guys can pick it apart and see all the different parts inside it. And we're gonna jump into it. We're about to the second half, so I'm gonna start going through scripting. We'll see how far we can get. Cool. So we get this little jumper, this little platformer. So it's pretty impossible to jump to each cube. So I'm gonna bump his jump up a little more, and then we're gonna go into the code. See how 4 does this. That's reasonable. I would just died just then. So this is kind of a little pathfinding too. You have to find which box works.
Maybe those are too far apart.
Huh?
Might be they're too far apart not to jump.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could sit here and play with it all day, get it just right, but
It's the fun part.
I know that isn't. I could sit here and play with it all day. That's the horrible thing. My girlfriend would not like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into some code here. Let's look at the player controller. So you can right click on a component and say edit script, and it loads the IDE that comes with Unity. It's called
Mono
Mono Developer. Yeah. I mean, you can use anything. A lot of people use Notepad++ with like JavaScript and IntelliSense, and Unity and IntelliSense, like a file you can download. It's a lot nicer than this, but I'm just too lazy. I just work with this.
Jump's downloaded with it. You don't have to worry about plugging it in. Notepad++ or anything. So.
And plus, this has debug tools if you can get them to work. And that's pretty useful. Notepad++ may have that too, but I don't. Okay, so I have a lot of properties. And this, like I said, is a very complicated script. It probably is overly complicated. I'm sure I could sit here and refactor it, whittle it down, and it'll have the same functionality. But basically, the structure of every script in Unity, you have some key functions that would be called automatically. You don't have to call them. Awake, start, fixed update. See, I should check, And there's another one, update. Fixed update happens at regular intervals, where update happens every frame. So if you're drawing, you want to use update. If you're doing logic of any kind, you want to use it with fixed update. Because in fixed update, you can call this property time.deltaTime, and and that'll give you the value of the time between each call. So when you're doing player movements, it's not going to be It's not going to be dependent on your frame rate. So if you have a nice computer versus someone who doesn't, it'll execute all the math and logic the same. Because if you do an update and somebody has a really nice computer and then jump, they're going to jump twice as far as you because they've rendered twice as many frames.
Like those 10-year-old games, cranking them up. They play like
Yeah, it's like they're like on speed. Like I played, was it Blood Omen
in the
1?
music.
And it was just like you press arrow key and he's like flies across the map. And his little character animates way too fast. So but we're good programmers, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna use fixed updates with time.delta time modifiers. So in this fixed update, this is pretty much the meat and potatoes of the entire script. I have a speed booster basically, it's like a jump pad. If you interact with a jump pad, that property gets a value higher than 0. And then I have a cooldown rate to kind of let you slow down. It's kind of like friction. Groundedness is just what it sounds like if you're on the ground or not. And that's important to know with player logic. So you want to know if you can jump. If you're in the air, you shouldn't be able to jump. That doesn't make any sense. Player rotations does all the logic for the cursor. So when you pan left and right, your cursor will rotate appropriately. Jump logic when you hit the space bar, and it checks groundedness to make sure that you can. Movement vectors, this checks your keys. External forces works with the speed boost. So either a speed boost or any other external force that's affecting you. So say I jump into a jump pad, that adds an external force to the character, and I fly up. And basically there's logic in here that once that external force has been applied to him, it takes it away. So it's just how a real object would work. You add some inertia to it, and then it has momentum, and then it slowly loses that inertia as it moves on.
You had
So-
something like that on your shooter, didn't you, when you jumped into some kind of a
The jump pad,
jump pad you had on there on one of the levels?
and that's exactly how I did it. There's a jump pad, it adds an external force, and it makes them fly through the level. Vertical vector is your like y-axis. Then I have a horizontal vector, which is my left and right, and my forward and back. So this vertical vector is getting affected by vertical speed, which is the property that I use to jump. Air control is basically when I'm in the air, I can use the keys to actually kind of manipulate myself a little, so I don't commit to jumps. So if I'm in the air, I can still kind of maneuver around a little bit. So if I miss a platform, I could just go to the left and kind of hit it. It's kind of cheap, but a lot of games do it. So if you want to look into the technical parts of this and see how each one of these functions work, you can. They're all right here. And I tried to stay away from really terrible variable names, so you should be able to read each variable name. I'm not going to have like an A equals true, and you have to figure out what that is. So that's player controller. Let's go into spin about in the axis. This was a lot simpler. Okay, so if we look here in the inspector, you see here I have the script name, speed attribute, axes, and rotation matrix. So if I put a variable at the head of my JavaScript file, it'll show up in the inspector. It's something I can manipulate from the game, from Unity. And then here's that start function, it gets called, and here's the update, it gets called every frame. That really should be. Probably won't be able to tell the difference, but they're definitely spinning more consistently, just gotta trust me. So that's it. You have transform, which is this value. So basically, when this script is attached to a game object, every game object in Unity, no matter what it is, has a transform component. You can always count on that. So you say transform.rotate around local. That's a built-in Unity function. So rotation matrix is basically what I build when you say axis Y. pass that value into here. I mean, you could easily go through this rotation matrix in here and add ones to it, but I just like booleans. It's the only reason I'm doing that. Okay, cool. So now we should write a script. This script is going to be called so it gives us a start and an update. What I want to do first is create an array. Now what we need in here, we're going to create a new empty object, just any, just a generic object, and we're going to call it a game controller. So all the logic for the game will go in here. Score logic, how many times you died, coins, everything.
So those empty game objects are basically like groups.
But it's a little more than a group because it can have children, but in itself is a complete object that can be manipulated. You can do anything to it. I mean, even though this is a game object, I could add a mesh collider to it. I could add a mesh to it. I could add audio to it. I could basically do anything I want. It's a blank canvas. What was I going to do again? Coin controller. Oh. So here, see this error that I got? Is insert a semicolon. Is in Python. And then it'll automatically recompile my code, and that's it. So I don't ever have to worry about recompiling. Every time I save, Unity recompiles it for me. So now what? What's wrong? Should have a little collection here. Give me a minute. Oh, that's right. Completely forgot. In JavaScript, typically you don't have any types. They're all just variables. But in Unity, for sanity's sake, it needs to have type. So we're going to give it a general type of object. Did I do something wrong? Oh. Yeah, no, I did that wrong. You wouldn't be able to know because you can't see.
Is it this?
No, it's the power. So sorry, the type doesn't go before the variable name, goes after. No, it's the power element.
The power just on the projector though? Oh, the whole
That
The rest of
whole
it's
outlet.
the whole outlet
Yeah,
went out.
Probably the
Okay.
breaker needs to be reset.
Here, I've still got power here on this outlet.
That's weird.
This is just charged.
Yeah, no, my
That is drawing a lot.
there you go. What's wrong?
It's drawing a lot of power.
Oh yeah.
Still got power.
Okay.
Power button.
No, that's. I think it's one enough. Should be warmed up.
built a lot of games.
Not in Unity. I have one game called Random Arena. I just been working on it for the last year, pretty much. And it's just, this is my pet project. I don't really have time for it. And we did the game jam, and that was about it.
Do you work full time doing games?
I'm a programmer at Jill Homes. Nothing to do with Jill Homes. Nothing to do with games. Real estate.
Prison?
No,
Oh.
real estate. Kind of the same thing, yeah. So what was I doing? Oh yeah. So we have a collection of game objects. You have to use types in JavaScript and Unity. I forgot about that. So game objects. That's not what it's called. It's called game object. Finally. Cannot convert null to game object. What do I need to give it? Again, syntax. Okay, cool. So I have a collection. I'm gonna drag these. Okay, so let's think about the logic here for a second. We have a collection of coins. Now each coin is going to have its own script. But what we're going to do to each coin is turn it off initially. Right? So right now they're all kind of set to on. So in start, we can say, like, we can do a for each loop, go through each coin, and then turn it off. So we say for I 0, I less than minus. Is that? Yeah, I think that's good. And I plus plus.
You don't have an actual for each loop?
Not in JavaScript, but I can see if Unity doesn't have one. So hard to see. We'll add a thing in here. It's called stack. No, it's already there. Or disabled. To be written. Okay, so let's go on to here. Great. JavaScript. I'll call this coin spelled the Unity way. And it up. I'm gonna say private var. So this private var means you can't edit it through the Unity editor. Private var is going to be state. And we're going to say int. And we'll set 0. There's enumerables in JavaScript, but I can't think of them offhand. Start. We're going to say here, say function. How about this? I'm not sure what it's called. Google it, right? That was right. IntelliSense in here is just not it's spelled wrong or something. Anyways, disabled. Okay, this is really unnecessary, but I just want to illustrate to you guys how start works. Okay. So now, basically what's going to happen is when the character interacts with this coin behavior here is going to access the coin controller and tell it to spawn in somewhere else. Okay? So what we're going to have here, function, collision enter. Oh, but that's here's a caveat. On collision enter is when you collide with a physical object, but our coins are going to actually be triggers. So they're going to be collidable, but you'll see that you can pass through them. They're not going to actually stop you when you touch them. So instead of on collision enter, we're going to want on trigger enter. And you'll see what I mean. Copy that. I really don't like this keyboard. Cool. So if we go into Unity, all these coins here, they don't have any collision data on them. So we're going to just add a sphere collider rather than a box collider. Same principle, just the sphere. And see, it says here, is trigger. So this will call that on trigger collide, or whatever it was called, but it won't actually stop the player from touching it. And Unity automatically fits the sphere to kind of fit the object best that it can. So if this is a box, it would be a box, but it would kind of be roughly the same size as the coin. Let's go into coin controller and I'll write this function method. Now spawn a new coin. Let's see. I want to get a random number from 0 to the length of my coin array. So to do that, I think it's like math.random. Say var. We're going to say random index. Make it an int equals. Okay. 0. Okay. One problem though. Arrays are indexed, or they start with 0 index. So you can't access coins.length. If it's 10 objects long and you try to access coins open bracket 10, you're going to get a null variable because it starts at 0 and ends at 9.
Right, but coins.length
will be 10.
Okay.
So you don't want random to pick a 10. So you're just going to say -1.
Yeah.
So now it'll pick from 0 to 9. And that's what we want. I don't think the syntax is wrong, so I'm going to Google it as well. I've been like not using Unity. I haven't probably touched it in a month. Sorry, I'm kind of rusty on all the syntax and everything. Random.range. That's close.
So is that the range is inclusive? It'll give you a range from 0 up to the length minus 1? Okay.
Hopefully an integer. I should check. I don't. Obviously, a float won't do float. Okay, I'm passing in integers, so it'll work in context of integers. If I were to put 0.0 here, it'll work in floats. So Unity's smart.
So you're not gonna get 1.1 or anything.
Huh?
So you're not going to get like 1.1 or anything.
Right.
Uploads.
If length was a float, or if 0 was a float, it would return a float, I'm pretty sure.
But you're still assigning that back to random index, which is of type int.
Mm-hmm.
So it should cast it back to an
That's
int.
true. That's true. So I'm thinking in terms of JavaScript. This is not in Java. That's how it would be in JavaScript. I would actually have to worry about that. I don't even think about that anymore. So then we're going to say coins, random. Doesn't even pick up on a variable in scope. Dot new.
Now, is there a way to detect the index of the coin that you just collided with? So
Make sure it doesn't do that.
So maybe on spawn new coin, you pass it the index of the coin that you currently hit, so that we check the random, and if we get the same value, maybe we get a different random one.
That's a good idea. I'm glad you thought of that.
'Cause that'd be kind of weird. You run through a coin
And
and
it
it's
just
like
spawns right ahead of you. Yeah. So I'm gonna call this.
So the idea is that this will never end. Like instead of like maybe like trying
Yeah.
to figure out like a pattern.
Yeah, it's gonna. There's not gonna be an end to this game unless you die, but then you'll start over again.
So I want to ask you a question. If you want to create a pattern, how would you do that? Like for example, if you hit 1 and 2 trigger,
Mhm.
obviously you need to select the coin that's once you hit it's gone, and then there's only
2 left.
right.
Like if you want to keep track of them.
Well, like have you ever played games like that where like you kind of need to like have a pattern?
What do you mean? Like, give me an example.
I'm trying to think. I think Mario used to do this.
I remember in Mario, you had to collect 100 coins.
No.
Every
Yeah,
time.
there'd be like a thing like for example like you hit 1 coin and 2 would spawn, but there's a pattern where if you had to find the correct coin,
Yeah.
and then that one would go away, and then if you like then you go on to like the next one that's basically you touch it and it would go away. But if not, 2 more would spawn.
And it's always gonna be the same.
Right, until you actually collect like all 6 coins.
The way to do that, that's cool. I like that. That's a cool mechanic. I'm not gonna implement it because it's a little bit.
I'm sure it's
A little bit more. It's a little involved, but basically what I would do if I were to do that is you would have to have some kind of data file. I would keep that out of code. I would make the code read the file, but like maybe a JSON file, or
Right.
just a regular text file, and it would have those relationships mapped.
So yeah, so it'd be a separate file.
Yeah, but it
And
would
you
call it
just
a
call it.
mapping file.
Right. And then you would just call it every time, like when you wanted to do it.
I would call it and then load those relationships into the logic. And so it's really involved. So you would have to sit there and create controllers for those coins, just that one set of coins, and then that controller would build all logic based on that file.
We'll probably do like a lot
I
of
was-
testing with that.
Oh yeah, you had a lot of playing with that.
I was thinking though, since we're like only got like half hour left, let's just implement it the way you were going to do it. And
Oh yeah, no, I didn't mean like to change it. I was just
No.
asking out of curiosity.
No, that's a good question because it's that's how I think a normal video game would they would go down that route, having more complicated relationships. I was trying to think of a name for this. Last selected.
no, I was just gonna say let's just do it where it can.
Oh,
so
I
that we
see.
don't have.
Okay.
If we have time, we can go back and
Yeah.
put a last selected in there or something.
Okay. Maybe I'll build that code between now and the next meeting. And next meeting, I want to get into. If that's okay with everybody. I want to talk about this now. It would be cool if we get into like PHP scripts and actually save a high score. This is pretty simple to do in Unity, and PHP is super simple too. So I figured we could get into one really easy PHP script that writes to a database, like a MySQL database, and then pull from it. And then we could get into UI. So we can actually see when the character dies, we can have like a counter how many times he's died or how many coins he's collected. We can get into all of that. So that's kind of my idea. Is that okay? With I need a consensus.
Well, I am a PHP developer, so I guess.
Okay.
Reference point.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll do ASP.
No.
So maybe we'll do ASP.
PHP is probably better.
Okay.
I'm all Linux.
That's good. Okay, cool. So we have a random coin being enabled. If it's already enabled, I'll just do one coin at a time, so that we don't have to worry about that either. Update function. I don't think there's some. Okay, so
I'll show you.
oh yeah. We're gonna reverse this logic because it's silly. Okay, in all honesty, we don't need enabled because there's not really anything that depends on it. We can disable the game object right from the code. We don't have to add any of this extra logic. I was just doing that to illustrate variables and everything else. So game object dot disable is active.
This your spot that you were talking about last week?
What's that?
This your spot that you were talking about last week?
But next month, I'm moving into caffeine spaces.
Right, okay, so that's.
Actually,
Is that-
It's on the FAU campus.
Oh, so it's like a restaurant or something? Or, anyway,
No, it's in the technology incubator, one of the incubator buildings. So
okay.
it's
So it's actually on the campus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds cool. That's where you're going to be working, or?
that's where I'm going to be putting my office for my video production. Coming from the north side through the Spanish River Road is better than coming in through Glades.
and it's like around the back.
How far is that for you from here?
Just
Not like maybe a 3 or 4 minute drive.
You can take Spanish River. Military, and then turn left on Spanish River,
I would just go out.
and it's right
Dixie Highway is right here.
there.
Just
Oh, yeah,
take
that's it.
Dixie Highway south to Spanish River and then go east. And right before you get to the airport, that's it.
I think it's all set up. Oh, I got an error. Spawn new coin is not a member of. Oh yeah. Each one of these. Coin behavior. Spawn.
Maybe we got these going out there.
Oh, I know what's wrong. Just finished hooking it up. Forgot one detail here. You can't access this directly. You have to find the component that you've added. So coin controller is just the name of the object. But this really should be called coin controller. That's what it is. coin controller is a component. Game controller is the actual object, right? That's in the Unity space. So here's game controller, and coin controller is a component of game controller. Naming conventions, I probably shouldn't have named this game controller. But anyways, you're accessing the component on that object, and then you're calling spawn new coin. Going here. Now it's saying disable is not, same thing. You can't just call disable directly on here. So coin controller, see right here, enable, disable. I can't do that. I have to do this. This is called coin behavior.
You get 2 dots there
Oh yeah.
at the bottom.
Yep. Yeah, should be good. Okay, we're all good. So these guys coin behavior. And then it's looking for a game controller, so drag that onto them. So then they all have access to game controller. In their behavior, they can spawn a new coin once they've been triggered, and then they get disabled. So when disable gets called, which probably call it after, they become deactivated and they disappear from the game space. They're not destroyed, they're just being disabled for temporary.
You probably want to keep that disabled first, because if you re-enable the same coin, then you're going to have no coins enabled.
That's true. I was thinking a step ahead. It's good. Okay, game controller has a collection of coins. Okay, this should work. They're all disabled. So one fatal flaw in our logic. We go through each one and disable it. So let's just take the first one.
Or just copy that code. Just call spawn new coin.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It'll pick a random one.
Oh yeah. Good call. Yeah. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. Did I get it? There it is.
Oh.
I'm dead.
Wait, why are you not falling through the...
I turned the collision on.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Robot back to see.
So with like the score thing next week, you should maybe like add a timer.
Add a timer.
And make it to where, like, you know how you like fall through? Maybe if you touch the lava, the camera kind of like stays where it is.
Yeah.
That way you'll just drop.
I was thinking that, or do another camera called death camera, and then toggle between them.
That can work too.
And so during death camera, it'll just be kind of looking down at the level, and then you have like a respawn button.
You gotta add some audio.
You gotta add some explosions.
Just like a collection sound. Like every time you hit a coin.
Oh, like a doing. Yeah. I can work on those assets are pretty easy to put together. Just the timing.
Should I stop recording then?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for watching.